everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors Podcast. Woo-hoo! 2022! Looking at you. Pew, pew. Choo, choo. Wow, New Year. What you gonna do? 2022. All right, so our new season officially starts in March. We are getting ready for Market Research March in prep for Self-Tape May 2022. But I know that it's a new year. Everyone wants to get it going and have some inspiration. So I'm re-airing our last season's Get Your Shit Together series. This is several episodes. Lots of actors who did what it took to get their shit together and then they got working. So this is for you. They are so inspirational, so exciting. I love you. New episodes in March. I will talk to you soon. All right, get your shit together. I don't know what that sound is. It's like a explosion of joy for your new year. Get it, book it. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 65, Looking Alive in Your Acting Career 2021. And if you're listening to this in a different year, then whatever year it is, lasts forever. Okay, you guys. This is Emily Berry. I promised you she would be incredible, and she is. This is such a great story. Emily is a little theater acting nerd through and through, and like so many of us, she has been doing it forever. It is her heart, her blood, her life, her passion. She came to LA, and then she left, and then she came back to LA, and then she left, and then she came back to LA, and she works now all the time. Tons of people left Los Angeles and New York City. A lot of people left the major markets. A lot of people are like, I'm done. I think this business is done. I don't know what's going on. And yet you're still listening to this podcast. So there's something there. And if that's true, I just want to see if this episode will serve as an inspiration to you. And also for those of you who didn't bounce out and who have stayed in the markets that you stayed in, I just want you to know it's such a great story about no matter where the world is at and no matter how horrible it all seems, the work comes back, the jobs return, there is work to be had. Our casting grows and changes and shifts as we grow and change and shift. And you just never know when it's gonna be your time. And she is just such a great story about following your heart, and she walked away, and then when it was like, no, you're not done, she came back, and then she was like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. So enjoy. She is magical. You guys, when you send me reviews, it is like being dropped off in the middle of downtown LA without a pandemic and somebody giving me like $5,000 in cash to blow on sequin fabric. It's like discovering that all the sequin fabric is double-sided and I can just spend the whole day flipping it from one color to the other color and one color to the other color and dream up all of the magical dresses and chairs and pillows that I could make and decorate. That's how much I love your reviews. Shout out to Wendy B, M. Tudero, Deb's Baby Love 1234, Vivian Kui, I love you guys' names, BW268, and Beck Joshua 93. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your reviews. It really warms my heart. This episode is brought to you today by Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. That's Greg Saffel, singinglessonslosangeles.com. You will work on your voice. Not just your body. It is a new year. Don't just be like, oh my God, can't wait to do P90X, all my bar method classes, and I'm never gonna work my voice ever at all. Don't do it. Don't do it. Do work on your voice. Also by weaudition.com. That's weaudition.com. Promo code Audrey25. I'm a proud sponsor of We Audition. I use We Audition all the time. I love We Audition. Just be on there. Give actors money. And if you're an actor, get money. It's very affordable. There's some incredible coaches on there. There's some great just readers. I don't want to be coached all the time. Sometimes I just want to figure it the fuck out. I just want to figure it the fuck out. And just working on it, and We Audition with various readers gives me the opportunity to do that. So weaudition.com, promo code Audrey25. All right, you guys, I hope you are self-taping an audition.
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today I have...
Emily Berry.
Hi, Emily.
Good morning. Good morning, quarantiners.
I know, quarantinis, right? First, I want to just start by saying to everybody, we are recording this obviously via Zoom. We're going to do all that we can to make this as personally impactful as it would be if you were sitting right in front of me. Here's to it and cheers to it. So I want to talk to them about your journey here in Los Angeles. This is going to be part of a sort of mini season that I'm doing that is specific to quarantine, COVID response. And it's really going to focus on like getting your shit together.
Great. We all need help getting our shit together. So I think it's
a permanent state of needing to get our shit together,
yes,
right?
Thank you for your work in this area.
No, you're so welcome. And thank you for joining us. So one of the things that people may not know about you is that you were a person who was here before the housing crisis and the writer strike that happened sort of 07, 08, and left a lot of people out of work for a couple of years. And you then returned to Hollywood a few years later, and we'll talk about the timeline. And it took you some time to get some momentum, and then you started fucking working. And so I really want to talk about that journey because I think a lot of people are having a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of feelings about like, I'm just like going to throw in the towel, but, you know, worried that if they do, that it's like irreparable if they change their minds or any of that. And I think you're just like one of my most favorite examples of like timing, essence, and casting and grit and passion and all of those coming together. Tell everybody about how long you've been in Los Angeles. Are you repped? What kind of reps you have pre-COVID? How many auditions you used to get in a year? How many maybe bookings of what kind of bookings they were?
Okay, let's see. I've been here off and on since 97. I moved away twice. First time was because I was young and out of money and my car got stolen. So I put everything in storage, went back to Chicago and was like, all right, regrouping. But everything stayed in storage out here because I knew I wanted to come back. But then the next time I left was 2008. So it was...
Do you remember what month?
Let's see. We left in October of 2008.
Can I say, last year, I literally was going to do a movement about like being nice to an actor or something because all of the emails and all of the text messages that I get of people quitting are always in October. I think it's because you're like looking at the year and like in January, you're like, gung ho, let's change lives, right? And then that doesn't happen. And then you're looking at like the year ending and you're just like, fuck it.
I think our lease was up, and from my experience, at least from October, our lease was up in October 1st, and we were like, we had thought about, my husband's from St. Louis, and I'm from a tiny little trailer park of a town.
Where at?
Jacksonville, Illinois. And so I'm in the middle of nowhere, just like a tiny little town. And we had always kind of thought, eventually we might move back to spend more time with our parents and maybe we'll have kids and da-da-da-da. My husband was working in locations at the time, and it was one of the many businesses that were affected by the writer's strike. I mean, I was working in a restaurant at the time and we hardly got anybody come in because everybody tightened their purse strings, everybody in town. You know, I would imagine the same thing happens when there's a strike on Broadway or in Wall Street. Like things change in the city because of the amount of money people can spend or can't spend. And that was 100% true for us, both for his locations business, obviously for my acting, but also I couldn't make a lot of money in bartending either. So we were like, you know what? The city is expensive. I think I'm sick of it. Bah! So we just kind of fast tracked ourselves and said, let's go back to the Midwest. Let's spend time with family now. It just seems like the time to do it before we get into more debt.
Yeah. Did you have intentions that you were going to come back to LA, or were you just sort of like, we're out?
I don't think so.
Yeah, right.
We were out. We were annoyed with Everything. I think we were just annoyed with money being so tight out of everything. And we were like, we got to get out. We just got to buy. I don't think we had any foresight. We had just gotten married in 2007, and that's what the year gave us after 2007.
Right.
I can't. Let's just be together and figure it out.
Yeah, it's interesting because the writer's strike, I have this imagination of it lasting forever. And I looked it up and it only lasted 6 weeks. But the effects of it came in sort of like in Hollywood with like a 1-2 punch, and that the writer's strike happened and then the housing crisis occurred. Yeah. I remember being like, I think I started this job in like 2007 and I had like just had some bookings and I was like, bah, 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 I'm amazing. And then I started this job at this restaurant at the time and they were like, it's really busy here during Christmas. And I remember turning to the guy who trained me and said, that's okay. I won't be here by Christmas. 6 years later, I finally quit that restaurant. Yeah. It's real. I just wanted to bring that up because I think a lot of people think of the writer's strike as this years long a thing. But when I looked at the actual numbers, it wasn't. It was like a month and a half. And then the economy collapsed at the same time. And then those two things combined were really devastating to Los Angeles.
It all blends together for me because it just seemed like chaos, just a bunch of chaos. So I don't really remember the timeline of how anything lasted,
Okay, so tell everyone you're here now, how long you've been here, and then what your sort of landscape maybe pre-COVID kind of looked like.
Okay, let's see. We came back in 2011. So we've been here since, I think, March of 2011. And pre-COVID, probably 2 to 3 commercial auditions a week, 2 to 3 theatrical, I guess, because I still audition for co-star stuff. I believe in working as much as you can, as long as you can, until it changes. At this age and this space and what I have to offer, I audition for everything that comes my way. Right?
Yes.
Because it all goes towards our health insurance. Why not?
Sure does.
How many bookings? Last year, I had my best year I've ever had. I think I had 12 bookings, 12 or 13 bookings.
Fuck yes, 12 bookings. And how many of them were theatrical and how many commercial?
It was about half and half.
Yeah. I fucking love that for you. You were really such a continual source of inspiration because I was with you when you just sort of came back and were doing these workshops. I think that was like 2011, 2012, right? And so just so everybody knows, Emily, Barry, and I were doing and our good friend Allie, we're doing 2 to 3 workshops a week for, years, right? Wow. Like years. And I say to people this too, like you'll see when you start doing them that there's this like little group that like does them consistently and they're good and then they get better. And that my experience is all of those people that was in that little group that they're all working.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember you being like emotionally sort of, as we all really were. All always are, but really at that time, the emotional turmoil of you trying to figure out how do you start working? Like, how do you catch some momentum? Who do you need to study with? What sides do you need? Like, what is it? And you did. You started working and haven't stopped. And it's been really exciting from my point of view to watch you age, to watch the age affect your casting in such an outstanding way, and to watch you book so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's fun because I'm representing women over 40 and plus size.
I know. I love it.
So that has been a very interesting and unexpected place to be. Because when there was one of my commercials, the UHC one for the Dirty Dancing, there were several people that I've never met, may never meet, that became fans because they felt represented. They were like, I love that people my age and my size are in a commercial being silly and just being seen. I had no idea that was a part of what I was bringing to the table. Maybe on some level I did, but I feel like The Office is a show that changed the landscape and really started celebrating character types.
Surely.
Sizes, colors.
Surely. Yeah. I also think Glee had a lot of push in that as well.
100%.
Lots of ethnicities, lots of body types, all of that. Now let's go backwards and tell them about leaving, your decision to like, F this shit o'clock, I'm out, right? And then what happened that you decided to come back? Was there something that was happening in your life back home? Was there a calling internally in your soul? You know, your type had changed a little bit by the time you returned?
All those things. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know that I would miss Los Angeles as much as I did. My husband and I both really missed it. We missed our friends. We missed the weather. We missed sushi. You know, we were in St. Louis and we loved being close to our family. And I was able to take some time and get back to what I loved. I did some musicals with a really fun small theater company there in St. Louis. And I met all the fun people. I met all the weirdos that I needed to meet. So it was fun to get back to what I fell in love with. In the beginning, when I was 7 years old, I fell in love with musical theater. And so it was really fun to go back to a city that has performance opportunities that are not necessarily just Music Man over and over again, you know, and stuff. And I felt like a big fish in a small pond when it came to voiceover stuff, because I had a lot of clients in that capacity. So I was able to spread my wings in a smaller market in a different way.
And did you have a day job over there? Were you close to your parents or his parents? 3 day jobs.
Yeah. I also did oh my God. There's a Seinfeld episode about it where you're the standardized patient.
Yes. Yes.
I worked there. I also worked at Lush Cosmetics, the place with all the soaps and bath bombs, and also in my voiceover stuff. And I think I worked at a restaurant for like a month or something like that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It was, you know, I had several things I was getting into, but we noticed the longer we were there, we missed it. We didn't think we would, but in both of us, in our hearts and our guts, I knew I wasn't done with acting. I knew I wasn't. So there was something bubbling. I had the luxury of going back and having time to look at what really got me excited about life, right?
Yeah.
And the luxury of being able to move back and give it another shot, because there was some fire in my belly and it wasn't my uterus. that kid, you ain't done yet. You got to try one more time. And I think I leaned into the uncomfortability of my casting had changed. I gained 50 pounds. I was older. There was a lot of stuff that I had to embrace that was different about me this time.
It's funny that you say that, because I kind of I didn't know that about you when I had met you. It wasn't until like after social media and everything. And I was like, oh, that's quite the blonde little berry, you know? But I do remember like being in the workshop space with you. And I remember you sort of like trying to kind of exactly what you're saying, like navigate yourself. Like, I do remember that energy of like, where is it?
Where does this body fit? Where does this piece fit? What does it know? Who am I representing? And figuring out how, in my head, what that means. And also translating it to my headshots, translating it to when I walk in a room, what's my body language, and being the thing.
I mean, and translating that to your headshots. I mean, I love, you guys, I love a good Emily Berry headshot. Like, they're magical. And you do such a great job. You know, one of the things that I see plus size actors do is they'll have a photographer who will take like the quote unquote most flattering photo of them. And then they look, you know, 30 to 50 pounds thinner in the photo than they do when they walk in the room. And I'm always like, you know, I understand that we all want like the great photo of ourselves. And I'm like, but put that on Instagram. And also like, for so many people, like their size is the magic of them. That's such a part of who they are when they come in a room, and changes the way that maybe somebody saw a character. And if you come in and all they're bringing in is like a bunch of size 2s and size 4s, and you come in not that, then they probably wanted that girl in the headshot, right? And so really finding a way so that what the headshot says is like what you come in as. And I love that you even said like how you walk into a room, because I get that from your headshot. I get like your grounded center. I get like your vocal tone. Looking at your headshot and then knowing what you come into the room with, I'm not like, oh, that's a surprise.
Yeah. Bringing that honesty of what you bring to the table in your headshots is kind of, there's a little bit of, what did I say, dysmorphia, I guess, sometimes when we see ourselves on camera. It's emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be very emotional. Like there were times where I was like, oh, I don't want to watch myself on tape, a few years back. And then working through that was such a big part of why I hit the way I do now.
Tell me about that.
I had an agent that helped me start to understand my type by saying, watch every single commercial you can. And the ones where you say, that could have been me, man. Oof, that really could have been me.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what you're seeing, study that person. Start looking at what did that breakdown look like? Work backwards from what's already on. Person who I really started to study was Melanie Paxson. She was that kind of a Midwest mom that was fun and kind of kooky. So I forced myself to get comfortable watching myself on camera, to get used to seeing my face and what story was I telling and where is the tension in my face that makes this joke not work. So I carry a lot of tension on my forehead. So I would study myself just eating. I would put the phone on, have a conversation with my husband that he still doesn't know that I did this. And just watch what the tension, how the tension left my face, and started trying to apply that as I was working. I'm like, your face is doing some weird stuff, as we all do. We all have tension that we hold somewhere. Mine was in my forehead. That's not good.
I hope everyone can really see this ownership and responsibility for the success you do or do not have. I think a big part of being an actor, every sort of year, I think after 30, and not even just 30, I would say, like, if you started at 4, then yeah, you do have this perspective by 20. Like, I know actors who start at 4 and they have this perspective at 20. So it's like, once you get 10 to 20 years of this perspective under your belt, I do think there's a greater leaning into the responsibility that it's yours and that you can give your power away to this teacher or to that teacher or this person or this person. And it's not that they're wrong, but it's just like, are they right? If somebody gives you some information, go test it. Don't go yes and. Don't just like do it. Go see if it's right.
Yes, 1,000 times yes. There's definitely value in, I've studied with a lot of different teachers, and I gleaned some really important little things from each one. I'm not a purist when it comes to, I only approach it from the Strasbourg stand. No. There are a whole bunch of tools in my toolbox, and it just depends on what's going on, which one which brush do I need today? Because it did take me a long time to connect the dots.
Yeah.
I didn't start working until I was 42.
Yeah. I mean, I remember you being confused and frustrated. And I remember suddenly you starting to catch. You were like, oh, it's the momentum's there. Okay, I'll go further there. Oh, the momentum's even further there. And it's like, you have a few things that you're going to try out and you don't know which one is really going to click, because a lot of that is due to the fact that like Melissa McCarthy blows up and then everybody was like looking for a Melissa McCarthy type and in walks Emily Berry, right? But you can't know when you're in the process of figuring out your casting that is going to blow up. So you sort of have a few that you try and you're like, maybe here, maybe here, maybe here. And you have to really give them their all. And then once you see that there's momentum in this area, then I don't know about you, but I found like, oh, I build momentum in that area. Everyone hires me for period work. I'll just do a bunch of period work. But wait, Emily, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Greg Saffel. That's Greg Saffel at singinglessonslosangeles.com. Do not be afraid about the fact that the title is singinglessonslosangeles.com. It is not just for singing. However, many of you are really incredible singers. And you have been neglecting your voice, and you know you have been neglecting your voice. Let me tell you, this pandemic is going to end, and you are going to be like, boy, sure wish I had my voice in shape. It is a new year. Same you. Get your voice in check. If you are an actor who needs some vocal range, don't just sit there and be like, God, I really got to stretch this year. And don't also say, I got to stretch my voice. All right, you guys, singinglessonslosangeles.com. Whatever your vocal needs are, please contact him. He's super incredible. He's really affordable. He is set up virtually. I couldn't recommend him more highly. I use him. Lots of my friends use him. He is so great. If you have a listener question, please call in to 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70.
I have a question. I learned in a SAG workshop about representation. The guy said that there is no blacklist. There's zero blacklist. Don't worry about a blacklist. There's zero blacklist. So I thought that was the case. And then recently I signed with a new manager who told me to be extremely careful about what I say because agents and casting directors and managers talk, and it's really easy to blow opportunities. So if you say something like, it's hard to get an agent without a referral, which I did, you could potentially offend a lot of people. And she said that there is a blacklist, and I am now kind of terrified to be honest at all. So is there a blacklist in Hollywood? Basically, my manager just kind of scared me, and now I'm scared to ask kind of the real questions I have, which I thought with my manager I should be able to ask them any questions I have, and we're a team, and we're at this together. But I basically was put in my place. So about that. So I just had a question about that for you, and thank you so much. All right, bye.
Well, anonymous caller, it sounds like you're off to a really great start with an extremely healthy dynamic between you and your new manager. All joking aside, there are so many blacklists in Hollywood. And by Hollywood, I mean all of show business. There isn't like a singular blacklist. There's not like a list running that's like posted somewhere on the dark web that like all of like the Hollywood people have like a passcode to. And they're like, before I hire somebody, let me just like check and see if they're blacklisted. There are some people who are maybe notorious enough that they're on like a general blacklist, but even those people are not blacklisted on someone's list, like someone will put them in something. So that's my way to say that worrying about blacklist, it's not a lot that you can really control in that. You do want to be mindful of your communication with everyone. Treat every single person, whether that is an actor on another set that you're on, whether it's a hair and makeup person. I did a commercial recently, and the session runner for the commercial was getting in her extra days on the commercial. And I just was like, gosh, think of all of the people who might be talking shit about any particular casting director. And that session runner runs sessions for a lot of casting directors. And so just pretend that every single person at the grocery store, in any place that you would go out to eat in, any party that you go to, pretend that everyone is married to someone you're trying to work with is probably a good idea. So it doesn't mean you can't talk. I have a podcast. I talk too much. Arguably, it's going to hurt me someday. Maybe already has. But for every little bit of thing that you might say might offend someone, nothing is irreparable. And, the more you open your mouth, unfortunately, the more you leave yourself open to people disagreeing with what you say. And I can't tell you whether or not that's a good way for you to live. I have best dear friends who will never come on this podcast. And it's too bad, so sad, because what they have to share and the information and experience that they have, I think is really valuable to you. But they are not people who feel comfortable telling their stories just because of a fear that they have that might negatively affect them in their career at one point. And I think that's completely valid, and that's their personal choice. And also, it's authentic to them. If I didn't talk about certain things and I kept my mouth shut and was just like a good girl and a good actress who just like kept her mouth shut and knew her place, that wouldn't be particularly authentic to me. And also, I try my best to put out like a work in progress concept that I'm like learning as I go. And as I learn, I try to give more information. And as I give more information, people give me more information that helps me learn more. And I hope to share it more. So when you're starting out your career, especially, you just don't know enough to know when you're going to say something that's offensive. And honestly, you're actually probably more likely to grossly offend somebody at a party or at a restaurant and you're sitting behind somebody than necessarily any direct industry professional that you're talking to. Anytime Jesse and I talk about like a movie that we didn't like, we're always like, make sure that we're like shoved in a corner. There's no one anywhere near us because we're like certain that the guy at the table next to us probably was the executive producer of that movie. So just know that's sort of the scoop. I have friends who have been blacklisted from certain things. I have friends who are agents or who have worked at agencies where the entire agency got blacklisted from an office. It certainly is real. But again, it's not like Hollywood blacklisted that actor. It's like a particular studio maybe blacklisted that actor because of a particular experience. However, there are lots of studios, and that actor went and worked at many other studios. An agency maybe is blacklisted from a casting office, and that takes him out of maybe some good shows. But luckily, there are like 250 casting directors in Los Angeles, all casting various different things. So there is plenty to choose from. So I recommend don't be scarcity minded. Yes, there is a blacklist, and no, you don't have a control really on it. And you are probably going to get blacklisted at some point in this business because we're emotional, sensitive people. We're little creative artists walking around trying to do business. Not a great idea. So I wouldn't worry about it. Yes, it's real. Just do your best to stay informed. And if you're not sure if what you say is going to come across as uncouth, then maybe don't say it. But I think the more you just listen to actor podcasts, you listen to casting directors, agents, managers, producers, creators, creatives, the more you listen to people talk about the industry, the more you'll have perspective on all of it, and the less likely you are to just say something that is just completely out of turn. All right, I hope that's helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay, so I want to rewind just a smidgens and tell them about when you were home. Was there a moment where you guys were like, let's go back?
Not specifically, no, but I do remember being inspired by Modern Family. And I have been in class off and on throughout the years with Eric Stonestreet. And to see him, I think I was inspired by him being on that show. I was like, one of my peeps. One of my peeps made it to a series regular. That's exciting. I think I was like, oh my God, he did it. It's like he slayed the dragon.
Yeah.
Ooh. I just felt this fire grow. It was like just so inspired by it. Yeah. I was reminded of how much I missed it and that I still had to give it another try. The timing ended up being exactly what I needed. The time away, I wouldn't have realized how much I loved it if I hadn't left it for a little while.
I really want to talk about that because I have noticed that the people who give a strong no and are like, I'm out, and really give being out its honest go, not even like, I'm going to try being out, but are like, I'm out and commit to being out. And then are like, I do find those people return with such a clarity. I don't know that they return with such a calm, but a calmer than maybe they had before. And there's just this understanding of like, I'm going to solve it. It's just going to have to be solved. I don't know what it is that even needs maybe to be solved yet, but I'm going to solve it.
I personally know that I had an acceptance of why I was like, okay, everything I've tried to this point wasn't working. So I've got to shut up and try everything new that comes at me and look at things differently than I thought I knew. Because everything I thought I knew wasn't quite true. So I gave over to and just accepted that everything I had known up to that point wasn't quite working, and I needed to start doing things other people's way.
I just want to preach to all of what you just said. I think that is so humble too. And I have to say the humility, the honest humility that has to come from the actor. And it takes both. It takes remarkable arrogance and it takes remarkable humility, both sides of the coin, because growth, in my experience, is a very humbling process as an actor. And I find the more training you have, the more master's degrees, the more conservatories you've gone to, the more entitlement actors feel. And then like the humility fucking circus that comes to town. And you have to just yes and that humility again and again and again in my life. Okay, so let's give them a little bit of information of how long before you got back here till you got some what you would feel like was momentum, where you're like, okay, here I am, momentum. How long did that take you?
I moved back in March of 2011, and I booked my first co-star and my first
National
in the same 2-week period.
Yes, I remember that.
Of 2013.
So about 3 years then. Yeah. Because then there's the period of it airing and all of that. And I remember being like, oh, look at you. Right. So I just want people to know, like, 2 to 3 years now on this side doesn't feel like that long. And the people listening are going to feel like, oh, only 2 to 3 years? Like, that's no big deal. Right. But when you're in it, it feels forever because you don't know that it's going to hit. And that's part of what is hard about being inside of those 2 to 3 years is that there is no guarantee that you'll get momentum after 2 to 3 years. And you didn't before and you didn't before. So why would you have any need to believe that you would now, except that you are just in a different place to be willing to just do the work and solve the problems?
Yeah. The momentum kicked in, I would say 6 months before I booked.
Right.
I got very serious about my focus. I stopped drinking. I stopped going out. I stopped being all that social at all. A friend of mine said, what do you really want? And I said, I want to work. I want to work doing this thing that I fell in love with years ago. He was like, focus on that and just that. See what happens. Boom. 6 months later, because I was so clear from not ever being hungover and not being, it just happened to help me really focus, to not have any sort of distraction like that.
A big part of it is discovering, I think, what you need. Like, that's part of your technique, right? Whether that's working out, whether that's having sex, like, going on a hike, like, I don't care, like, whatever it is for a person, it's like, what is it that keeps you centered? What is it that keeps you clear? What is it that keeps you focused? And there are plenty of people who drink a lot and work a lot. And also, I want you to know, a ton of people that I talk to who start working have quit drinking. Like, it seems, Jesse and I, we're like, we still have beer from our wedding. Like, that's who we are, right? That was like 2 years ago. So it's not something that I think a lot about because it's not a big part of my life. But I know that for a lot of people, it is. And smoking weed for a lot of people, they're high all day. And if that sounds real to somebody listening, we've had many people on in the past, and some of the people that are going to come on in this series, that's a part of the equation, is they got sober, it got clear.
I didn't have time to be hungover anymore. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It just kept me a little too cloudy,
Yeah. Well, it's a depressant. I mean, the truth is about alcohol is a depressant. So if you're a person who needs motivation, then anything that you add to that is like putting weights on your journey. And is it worth it? And that's not true for everybody. Like, I'm a person, like, I don't need and nor have ever needed help with self-motivation. I need help calming down. Audrey needs to have a drink and sit outside, right? But you have to know which person you are and then do whatever it takes and ask yourself, what are some things? Did you know when you had quit drinking that would be such a, no, you didn't know?
No. And I'll go back to my point. I was like, well, I've tried everything else. Why not try this for a while? See if that helps.
Yeah. It's elimination, right?
A good therapist to deal with some of my emotional baggage so that wasn't coming in the room with me anymore.
Boy, I have to tell you.
All these other things underneath the iceberg of booking a job that, again, comes back to me taking responsibility for some things that are in the way.
I just love that because I'm such a big fan of everyone being in therapy who's an actor. How long before you started booking your job did you start therapy?
About 6 months.
Yeah, see?
It was an overhaul. It was an emotional overhaul in general. I was like, fine, I'm going to line this. And I'm going to do this. And we'll see what happens. I gave myself permission to just be in a process with it. I was like, all right, we'll see what happens. And my work got better. I got more excited about my work because my work was so clear. And so then when I was doing performances in the workshops that we were doing or in class, or whatever, I was so excited about my work. So the new drug was doing good work and finding the truth and that became that high replaced any high, I thought I was getting off base.
Yeah. Can I also say what I love that you said is like you were just determined to sort of go through the process of figuring it out. And I think like if I could like envelop actors with any sense of anything, it would be that. It's like this, it's all a problem solving process. You're seen as a problem solving process. What you're going to wear to the audition is this problem solving process. And also that's the same creative problem solving process of figuring out how you're going to work. I think people just have this impatience, which I remember having of like wanting to like snap and solve it. Like you want to sort of like flip a switch and then it's done, as opposed to, okay, there are people who are working and it's not me. So what is the actual identified issue? And part of it is looking for what is the identified issue. Is it talent? Is it you can't handle pressure? Is it relationships? Does nobody know who you are? Is it ego and that you are unwilling to have a casting that maybe is not as pretty, perfect, shiny as you want it to be since you were 16, right? What are any and or all of the things that can be hindering you from really nailing that thing? And that is, to me, why it does take like an Olympic effort, is because it really costs you, I experience. Like not just money, but like it costs.
It takes time.
It does.
It takes time, and it takes
tears.
Tears. Oh God, yeah.
So many tears.
But that always, like every time I had a breakdown like that, it's so cliche. I'm sure many people have said this, but once you have a breakdown, then it you're like, okay, we had that. We realized that this didn't work. And then you get up and you're willing to try something else.
Yes.
And without that breakdown, you don't get that. You don't understand that you have to get to that point.
And you actually don't have to always get to that point. But if you won't take the lesson, then you will.
Yes, good point. Agreed.
Do you have anything for all of the actors who fled New York, who fled Los Angeles, who have just fled for the time being? A lot of them were sort of maybe in your position where they just like couldn't even get an audition. Some of them may have been in the position I found myself in of like really just starting to hit some momentum and suddenly it's stopping. And people in true financial trauma right now. Anything you want to say to those people who are thinking about or have just left?
Yeah, there's value in letting ourselves grieve about what's happening to our industry, to our world, I would say value self-care, especially if there's traumatic economic stuff happening. That has to be healed and get to a place of stability, I think, before you can kind of go back and look at showbiz. So if we get past that, I guess the next question is there anything else that gives you the same joy? What else gives you joy during this downtime? We have this weird luxury question mark of time to look at a lot of things about our lives. And if there's anything else that gives you joy, lean into it. If it's something you can lean into at the time and see what exists there. The business always comes back. It's just, it hasn't been through something quite like this before. It's been through many a strike, but it hasn't been through something like this before. I think the business will always be there. And the wonderful thing about our business is that you can work at any age.
What I've been saying to people is what you can be doing during this time is find ways to make money, because if they're not going to bring smaller characters on set right now anyway, then you've got some time, right? So pay off some bills, earn some income, have some savings. I've also said, get your shit together. Like now's a good time to figure out and experiment with what your casting is and get those materials together and invest in those things without feeling like, oh, but I'm still missing like auditions. I'm missing whatever those things, because you're not missing them. Right. Yeah. So take the time that Emily's talking about of like solving some problems. Right. And in solving those problems, you'll come out with that focus and with the momentum of that focus. But I think what I'm also going to add to it is this very essential component of self-care, which I have to say as an actor anyway, I'm just going to shout out therapy again, you guys, because like you, it had a profound impact on my starting to book. I realized all the stuff I was carrying into the room, and I started solving it in therapy instead of hoping that my co-star audition solved it for me. and it probably did take about 6 months to a year, and really changed me. And I always tell people, like, if you were an athlete and you were dealing with like your physical body all day and you're making a living off of your physical body, you definitely have people who are masters at what they do, working with, checking in on, healing, helping your physical body. And like what we do is emotional. And so we are constantly taxing ourselves emotionally again and again and again. And not just in the actual work, but in the pursuit of the work. It's like we are an emotional group of people. And it just makes sense to me that then you should have some help and have some people checking out those emotions. How these emotions doing? Or are we emotionally healthy? Like, what's going on? We need you at peak optimal emotional capabilities here, and getting the resources to make that happen.
Yeah. I remember at one point when I realized how many people I had to CC on things when it came to bookings and auditions. I was like, we built up to this, and the therapist really should be silently CC'd on this, because they're a part of the team too.
They are a part of the team.
They're a big part of what makes the train go.
And I love that you talk about it like the team, because this is something that I try to explain to people. I had a friend of mine who took headshots, and her headshots like did not come out the way they were supposed to, right? And I felt really bad for her, and she felt really broken. And I said, yeah, we've all been there. And I said, listen, like, this is normal. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, like I had to shoot with this one photographer 3 times before I got ones that not just worked as shots, but worked for me and my casting. And I said, it's a lot, but like the shots that I just took, that I just posted on social media, I've been working with that makeup artist for 10 years. That makeup artist has been working with that photographer for like 7 years. So Buckley had styled me for them, and I've known her for 10 years.
You're
and
beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much.
I know.
Thank you. Thanks so much. But we worked a lot on it in checking things out. My manager had to fight for certain looks, because I was like, listen, like the suit look, I was like, I can't buy a suit off the rack because of my measurements. Like they don't fit me, and it's COVID, and I can't make a suit right now. And she was like, I need a suit shot. I was like, okay, calm down. So it was like, I had my manager whom I've been with for 8 years, who was like putting her foot down. And then the photographer was like vocalizing and staying open and saying what he needed and what he didn't need, and checking in. And so like, it was an all hands on team deck process to make them as successful as they were. And there were still some things that like I would do differently next time.
It's so funny.
But it takes building a team, and it's a process. But wait, Emily, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by weaudition.com. That's weaudition.com. Promo code Audrey25. Promo code Audrey25. Like, listen, I've talked about We Audition like a bajillion times, and some of you are still scared of it, which I think is really incredible, because working with strangers is what actors do. If you have this feeling like you only want to work with people that you feel comfortable with, I just want to say I would try to make 2021 the year where you don't do that. All of my life is about like, hi, you will be my dad today. Hi, casting director I've never met before. Suddenly, you're going to be the love of my life. Hi, random child. You are now my son that is about to die. That's what we do. In addition to just like practicing the work and practicing the text and just putting things on tape just so you're comfortable with them and the process of being on tape, practice with strangers. Practice with people that you don't know. Learn how to navigate different people. Learn how to stand up for yourself. If somebody's giving you a direction that you don't agree with, go on We Audition, book a half hour, an hour with somebody, and then tell yourself, okay, twice today, I'm going to say, I don't know that I agree with that note. and then see if you can ask them to explain it further. Because collaboration and fighting for a point of view and discussing possibilities and not just yes-anding somebody is a really big part of having artistic ownership. There are so many important ways to use We Audition as a resource, and just the general sort of, I'm going to work lines with somebody, I'm going to get coached with somebody, is just a small part of that. I love working with people I don't know. They always bring something a little bit different to it, which helps inform my performance. So if you are a person, the idea of like talking text out loud with a stranger massively panics you, then you must go on We Audition this year, and you must practice working with strangers and getting comfortable with it. All right, that's my rant. Promo code Audrey25, weaudition.com. If you have a listener question, please call in to 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70.
Hey, Audrey. Thank you for the great podcast. Left you a review. My question was about the workshop episode. I just wanted to get some clarifications, as I'm also doing workshops over Zoom this break, and wanted to see, when you were doing workshops, did you do multiple workshops with the same casting director? I asked because I just did a workshop, and I was just seeing what your strategy was. That did you do one workshop and then kept in touch over email and social media over time, or did you go in multiple times? And yeah, basically I wanted to ask that because I just finished a workshop and wanted to see if I should go in again and see the same casting director, because I know that being seen once is not enough to be remembered, or at least from what I hear. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. I hope this gets to you.
Okay, I'm so glad that you called in about workshops, because I think it's important that we talk about them. Yes, they're over Zoom right now. A lot of people are like, what about workshops? And I'm like, yes, there are workshops, and yes, they're over Zoom. Now is a great time. I think even if you're thinking about going to another market, if you're like in a smaller market and you're thinking about going to a major market, a really great thing to do right now is just start doing workshops with people in the market that you want to go to. It used to be that you had to be in person, and now you don't. And I don't know that we're ever going back. So it's so great that, like, if you wanted to also go from a larger market to a smaller market, are they doing workshops? Are the casting directors in Georgia doing workshops right now? I think it would be a great thing if you wanted to go to Georgia. Do a workshop with a casting director in Georgia and get the ball rolling, maybe even before you land there. Really great advantage to right now, and I think going forward. In terms of seeing people multiple times, yes, please see them multiple times, but don't turn into a stalker. It's always a fine line with acting. You know, it's like, I want you to know me, but I don't want you to know me. So we have to just sort of manage how we pursue something. When I was doing workshops, my favorite ones were actually the multi-weekers. So this is where it was designed like a class where you would do something week 1, something week 2, and something week 3. And I really liked the opportunity to make a consistent impression with them over time. If I did a workshop like that, I would usually do maybe 2 of those a year with a casting director. I would do something like right before their television season started so that they could be like, oh, yes, Audrey, there you are. I remember you now. And then often I would do them as their season was ending. This is like, I've actually had a lot of luck during the holidays, and it's because everyone used to bounce out of town or just sort of mentally check out. They were like, fuck this shit, it's the holidays. But there's a lot of stuff casting between December and January, especially for primetime television. And it would go so fast, and then they'd also get these pilots, and so they just like didn't have time to do the normal scouring I felt. And I had a lot of luck with them being like, somebody just did a workshop? Great. Bring them in. And in addition to, the workshops were really light. It wasn't as full, and I just felt like I could really stand out. So that was another good time to do workshops. Now that so much is streaming, I do think that doing them just generally when they're shooting their actual shows is a really great time to do them. So again, I like the multi-week ones where you do 2 to 3 in a row. And I would do those like twice a year. If that casting director didn't do multi-week workshops, then the next thing I would do is I would do like 3 a year. I would sort of do it once in the beginning when they started filming their show, once in the middle of the season of them filming their show, and then again as it was sort of wrapping up. Again, really focusing on when they're actually doing the casting. That's when I felt it was of real value. If they're only shooting something for 2 months, then I think 3 workshops in 2 months is turning into a crazy stalker person. If the casting director says to you something like, Audrey, I know who you are. You don't have to keep doing these workshops. Like, maybe take the hint. But also, people do need to be reminded. And I never got a communication that was like, Audrey, stop seeing me. It was more like, Audrey, there you are again. Oh, okay, good to see you. And they were sort of like, here you are. And I was like, that's me. I want you to remember me. So if it's not a person who does a multi-weeker, then yeah, I think doing 1 to 3 with them every, like where they're doing a full season, even a streaming limited series that maybe has 6, 7 episodes, they're usually casting that over a period of 4 to 6 months. So even in something like that, I think it's worth seeing them maybe 2 or 3 times, depending on how really right you are for the show. So that's my recommendation. I also got a question on my Instagram from somebody that said, Audrey, what about doing casting director workshops with casting associates or assistants, but not actual casting directors? Oh my God, please do them. Please do them with anybody who is doing them. Usually and often, I would say casting directors don't do casting director workshops. They're sort of doing the offers out to the famous people. It's often the casting assistants and casting associates who are doing the workshops, and they're the people who have the power and the time to be like, hey, I found this person, let's bring them in. A lot of the smaller roles, the co-star roles, they're allowed to sort of bring some people in. And quite frankly, you just don't know who has ability to bring someone in. There are plenty of casting directors who are maybe newer to an office that are given the opportunity to bring in some co-stars. And then there's plenty of people maybe been there for a few years and don't really, and you're really not privy to that information. If you do have friends who are doing workshops and getting called in from a particular casting director or casting directors, if your friend is like, yeah, I just got an audition, you're like, oh, from your agent, they're like, yeah, but I did a workshop. You're like, oh my God, who is that person? Because, it's good to see people that are calling people in that do that. All right. I hope that was helpful. And yes, do workshops.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay. What do you wish somebody had taught you or managed to get you to understand when you were just a wee babe entering this business?
That you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of mistakes with little M's. They're not super dramatic. They're not written in red. They're not in all caps.
Mm-hmm.
Calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from them.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so great. It's a certain amount of maturity that has to come into that mentality, right?
Yeah. If you had interviewed me 10 years ago, this would not be no
the answer. Right. Yeah. What is the best part about the business for you?
I really get a rush when I hear that I'm the choice.
Mm-hmm.
I get like this.
Yeah.
That's really fun. And then I like the butterflies that I get. A lot of my stuff is just 1 or 2 days of work, and it's exciting to walk. It's exciting and frustrating at the same time, but I get butterflies about how is this going to go. And I also really have let go of the nerves to some degree that I can study the people around me. A little more aware of how they carry themselves as leaders on set. And that's fun to watch.
That is awesome, right?
Yeah. Like if I sell my show and I get to be kind of a leader on set, how do you want people to feel when they come? So that's a fun lesson too.
I love that. What is the worst part about the business for you?
Falling in love with a character you auditioned for and finding out you didn't get it. That's hard.
It's so real.
That doesn't happen every time. Not every single one has it feels like you feel them in your heart. You feel them in your body. You really feel like a connection with this, and it goes to somebody else. Sometimes it's more sad than others.
Yeah, I so agree.
But it's a part of the ride.
Yeah, to me, it's the thing that I think nobody talks about when they talked about like the rejection is hard. I think everyone thinks that it's like those couple of days you don't hear, or that after you don't get it are like the hard time. And for me, it's more like keeping my attitude in check for the next go round. Because when you have your heart broken and you didn't book and you did literally the best job that you can do, and they loved it, right? Usually when you fall in love, they love it, but it doesn't go your way. the way that then affects my approach on the next one, and keeping my heart open and not being jaded about it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last question for you is going to be, for anyone who is going to listen to this and is going to consider coming back to a major market or back into acting, any final words for them in terms of what you feel like you did well or did really poorly that you would do either over again or definitely do differently in sort of re-emerging yourself back into the landscape?
Getting a grip on my nerves, wherever they sit for you, it's very important to figure out when do they creep in. And it doesn't matter why. We all know why. We all want the job. Everybody's nervous at some point about something, right? But figuring out how to harness them and put them in a different place temporarily until you can get through your audition. Don't let them live inside you if the character's not nervous. You know, there's a sense of ease that I started pretending I had. It's not cocky. It's just a sense of ease. And like, it's all going to be all right. We're going to figure it out. And you know who's really good at that is George Clooney. Every interview he gives, he's just like, hey.
Yeah.
It's all about everybody else somehow. He is there 100% for that other person. And there's a part of me that tries to get that sort of relaxed, it's all good energy in me when I leave my car. And I wish I had been doing that a while back, because it just keeps me open to what's going on around me. And a little bit, it's almost like the force field of, everybody else's problems are going to be their problems. It doesn't have anything to do with me today, whether it's a session runner or the person before me or whatever it is.
Right.
It's always going to be something.
Yeah.
So that sense of ease, work on a sense of ease that just for the sake of the audition time. That window. And then it'll start to spill into other things. When you're on set, get in the middle of a coaching. Okay, fall apart, get back up.
I love that, because I've talked on this podcast a lot before about the fight or flight mechanism, which is a lot of where we're all at right now anyway. And within the fight or flight, you actually don't have access to your creative solution part of your brain. There's a firewall that goes up and you're just in fight or flight. And I would go ahead and say probably 80% of actors enter auditions in fight or flight.
I still do. I'm not saying I have completely gotten rid of it.
I still do sometimes, but far less frequently, right? Far less frequently. And I'm aware that that state of being is not welcome here, because nothing that I really want to create can exist with that there. And that's in the audition prep process. If the audition is a really exciting opportunity, if I'm in fight or flight for the whole prep, like I'm dead in the water. Yeah. So figuring out for you what you have to figure out so that you're not in that fight or flight when you go into rooms.
Yeah.
Whether for me, and I think for you, a lot of it, that was what I was doing in workshops, was I was working on the fight or flight, like not being freaked out by a casting director watching me. And also not being in that state in the prep. And I always could tell, because I would walk out of the audition room, and the moment I was on my way to my car, all the most genius ideas came flooding into my head about how to do this role. And I couldn't see them or receive them simply because I had a literal wall in my brain up that prevented those inspired, creative ideas from even being nurtured.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you said that. And especially why I want to say, like, yeah, we have to take care of ourselves. Like, let's make our self-care really important right now, so that you're not in fight or flight when you return to this business and this business returns to you. Yeah. Well, listen, I am so proud of you. And I just want to say, like, I don't know if I've ever said to you before, but I'm so proud of you. I really think that, not just even the journey, like, there's a lot of, listen, Emily Berry has had a lot of shit happen in her life, you guys. And I have just seen you handle it, work through it, and come out, you come out wounded and scarred, but like come out, and still your work, your process, your compassion in terms of like to yourself, and also your capacity for the love of the work. It's all grown. And I think of like the little baby Audrey and little baby Barry pounding workshops all day, every day. And I just think it's really great.
Thanks, man.
You're so welcome. I'm excited for you. I'm proud of you. And I am hopeful.
Flashbacks of Act Now.
What are your flashbacks?
Just of us like getting to the, like, so what do you think about this scene? And just like whispering our scenes back and we're just practicing our scenes.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, does that joke land like that? Yeah. Okay. I'll try it this way. Just like figuring out the scene and how much time do we have? And oh my God. And it's, I have time. What's the code for the bathroom? And
The code for the
I
bathroom.
felt there was this a very interesting sense of us kind of like
Banding together.
just like, yes, that's a great, and showing up for each other in something where nobody told us we had to.
And no, we didn't know each other before either.
I was like, she's funny. What's she think? But that was it. It was as simple as that. She's good. She's funny. Hey, come here.
And I was like, yes. And then I'd be like, can you read with me? You're like, yes, I'm going to read with you. You were always like, yes, of course. Of course, I'll read with you. Yeah, it was, and we did.
I was watching you work, so it didn't matter if we were whispering it in the corner or if we were actually doing it full up.
I loved it. I so remember that. I love the clarity of all of that image, because I hope that it shows people like, this makes me emotional. Like, it's part of it, and
just against the world. We are all there to help each other. Like, it doesn't feel like it. I remember initially I didn't think that, but without my friends, I would not, without my friends who were willing to tell me that's not working and me being accepting of it because they love me and they want it to be better. I wouldn't have the resume I have. I wouldn't have the money in the bank that I have. I wouldn't have any of that stuff without the lovely, brutal honesty of my friends about the work.
And also not even so brutal. Like, I don't remember anybody being particularly brutal to you. I think you were far more hard on yourself than anyone ever had to be on you.
I think we all are, yeah.
Right? But just the willingness, like you're saying, the hunger, the eager, the like, where is it? And I have to say this, like, it doesn't, I haven't found that it can last. This thing that if you guys are feeling like people are competitive and kind of mean and kind of shitty to each other, like, do workshops regularly for me. And like, that just doesn't exist anymore. Like, the people who do them regularly, you lose that shit real fucking fast if you ever had it, because
it doesn't really serve anybody. It doesn't make
it's also fake. You learn you're actually not competing with anyone else. That like,
and at the end of the day, it doesn't make your audition better.
Doesn't make your audition better. And even if it did make your audition better, and even if you were the best person, you could still not get picked.
Yeah.
So all it does is make you an asshole, right?
Yeah.
And also, I think like the camaraderie attitude, I don't know, for you, for me, I think it gets rewarded.
Yeah, because it connects to that sense of ease too. Like, I see people are like, the second I show up and I see other people that I know at an audition, I'm excited. I'm happy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, I love you. Thank you so much. I'm hopeful it'll be just like a really inspiring reflection for people who are in a scary spot right now to realize they can leave, they can be done even. And you said like the business hasn't been through this before, but like it has. World War II, that we were in the thick of it in World War II, and people would come back from war and be like, I think I'm going to be an actor. And that was like a reasonable thing, right? Like, just towns of men didn't come back. They just like didn't come back. Like, an entire generation of men would be gone in a particular town. And Hollywood didn't just survive, it thrived. So, show business.
Pivot.
I'm not worried about show business. We are creative people. We will create our solution, right?
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Next week on Audrey Helps Actors. I don't know what's next week. We haven't decided, but it's gonna be great. It's just going to be another Get Your Shit Together episode that I've already recorded, but we haven't decided on. Special thanks to Emily Berry. OMG, that little Berry town. Emily, thank you so much for coming on today. I am so proud of you. I love you so much. I know all of the work you've put in over the years and all that you've come through and all that you've done and all that you're accomplishing. And I'm just so happy for you. And I'm so excited to be working right with you on something so big one day. I just can't wait for us to geek out and be like, we're doing this together. Oh my God, I see you. Hi. And then like tell every single person that we're on set with. They're like, oh my God, we've known each other for years. We used to do workshops together. Oh my God, it's so great to see you. That's my hope for our future. Special thanks this week and every week to Thomas Hank Snodgrass for his incredible work with sound. Thanks, Tommy. You guys, Thomas loves to surf, so if you ever see him out there, just give him a little hang something sign what you do with your hands. Executive producer, Jesse Lumen, my still so handsome husband, getting more handsome every year, I should say. Show music by Ari De Niro, theme song by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill, and editing this season by Taylor Martorana. Taylor! Crushing it. We are so excited to have you join our team this season. All right, don't forget your towel.